Hi, this is Angela G from No Longer Lukewarm for Red Hot Christians and Wannabes. These videos are for those of you who like to listen while you're maybe doing something else. For those of you who like to read my blogs, you can find that link in the description box below. So this one is called, I Believe the Devil's Lies, Then God Moved. The devil is a liar. He knows that the only power he has over the children of God is in the whispers that we believe. But God is always in control, and he can get his message across in ways that don't even require the use of words. Until just over a year ago, I would have never believed that God would have a ministry for me in blogging. In fact, the way it all played out, I have a feeling that if it were up to me, I would still be on the sidelines instead of right smack dab in the middle of where God called me to be. See, I had believed the devil's lies, that I couldn't use my talents for God. But then God moved for me, just like he will move for you. A rough start. It all happened before I really knew what was happening. One minute I was considering trying a blog, and the next minute I was in it. I had put down my credit card payment, commissioned a logo from Fiverr, and was clicking through themes on the WordPress site. My blogger friend Rachel, I had met on Twitter, had been telling me to start one for almost 2 years. But every time I had always just repeated back to her what I now believe were the enemy's lies to me. I wouldn't keep up with the blog. It isn't the right time for a blog. Anyway, no one would read my blog if I created one. But on that day, it was as if my inhibitions were bypassed, and I made the leap. I was a blogger, but the technology part was harder than I thought. As I started clicking around in the WordPress site, in one short afternoon, I had made a big mess of things. I deleted my contact button, picked a theme I hated but couldn't seem to change, and turned the entire background a hideous red. I was beginning to realize that, at least where the website was concerned, I was in over my head. The whispers and doubts that had plagued me before started up at the back of my mind again. That is until I remembered my friend Rachel, who had encouraged me all those times. I thought maybe she would have some advice for me, and she did. She was supportive and gave me a few tips that she wished she would have known when she got started. And when it came to technical help, though, she would have to refer me to the person who got her started in blogging all those years ago in Michigan, her friend Renee. She gave me her number and set up the meet time for tech help over the phone. Then God moved. That was when God showed up big. As many doubts as I had about blogging before, and as frustrated as I was with my inability to work the website, they were all pretty much forgotten when I saw the phone number. Rachel's friend Renee, who had helped her get started in Michigan all those years ago, no longer lived up north. She had, in fact, moved nearly 1,500 miles south to a city in Texas that was about 10 minutes away from my house. This had to be God. What would be the odds otherwise? Within a few days, Renee and I met at Starbucks for a website tutorial. She recreated my contact button, erased my ugly mistakes, and sat patiently with me to help me create the site I wanted. Not only that, but the picture I had happened to choose for my background before I figured out my theme became the picture I needed for my very first article, The Waves of God's Judgment and the Child of God. Just in the first few months of blogging, I saw God's hand again and again. He was right there in the way I got the ideas and the words I used. For example, for my blog called Born Again, all about that butterfly life, I got my first line when it popped into my head as an answer to a Healthy Faith Twitter chat question. I forgot about it until a few days later when a Facebook friend posted a picture of a butterfly in her yard. Inspired, I started writing, but when I got about 2 paragraphs into the article, I wasn't quite sure where to go with it. That is until my YouVersion Bible app of the day popped up. It was exactly the verse I needed to finish the piece. This is just the story for one of my early blog posts, but each one had a unique trail from the beginning to end, encouraging me that God was in the mix of it. Since that time, I have grown a lot, both as a blogger and a person. Now each week I listen closely for what God would have me to write and do my best to convey his message. In the process, I have learned lessons about patience and the secret to waiting on God. I've dug into places in the Bible I've never been before. And I learned about separating myself from the ministry so that numbers and comments, or lack, don't produce pride or rejection. They used to. Oh, the devil still tries his whispers. He tells me God is done with my blog and won't help me anymore. He tells me I'm not making a difference and that God isn't using me for his purposes. At times I'm ashamed to say that I've believed him. But God is so faithful. He shows up week after week and reminds me that my life and this ministry is in his hands. All I have to do is believe, and God will do the rest. A year and a half ago, I had no idea that I could do it, but then God moved. God will move for you too. Do you have a gift or a talent that you aren't using for God in some capacity? Have other spirit-filled believers spoken to you multiple times about starting or joining a ministry? Does the devil keep whispering to you that you wouldn't be good enough or no one would be helped or care if you did it? If you answered yes to any of those questions, just know that I was right where you are. Even if the things sound scary, hard, or beyond your capability, none of those things matter when God calls you to do it. Just step out in faith and watch God move.